What's going on, guys? We are here with Lee's Saleen. This is a 2017 Saleen. They come factory supercharged with a Kenne Bell 2.8 liter. It's actually a special Kenne Bell, has some Saleen logos on it. Pretty sweet ride. This thing also has a bunch of other really cool modifications, a really nice big brake kit, and overall this thing is pretty tricked out. Now, Lee dropped this car off a little while ago, and it's actually had a lot of problems. A lot of different shops have gone through it, and we dug in and got to the bottom of it, and we're gonna dyno it today and try to make some power with it because it's had a lot of issues, and we'll just go over a few of them. So I've been talking to Lee for a while, and this car was at a previous shop. They did really everything they could to try to diag this car, and it had a misfire issue. Tuner shop, I'm hearing all this from Lee, but essentially they concluded it's got a misfire, it needs a motor. So the stock motor got sent out to L&M. L&M tore the motor down, and well, there's nothing wrong with it. They still ended up doing a sleeve rod and piston 10.5 to 1 compression, fully built motor with L&M intake cams on this Gen 2. The car only has 5,000 miles, so it now has a built motor, and it's got a fuel system. It's got a lot of really good parts to basically make a lot of power. Now fast forward, when the motor got back from L&M, it got put in the car, and they started doing some tuning with this tuning company. They only work remote, and there was a misfire issue. They chased their tail. I think they replaced the PCM harness, tracing a bunch of stuff down in this car, and they weren't able to figure it out. He called me up and said, hey, car's on the way down to you. Now, when I took delivery of the car, I started it up, sounded pretty normal. I didn't hear any crazy misfire. I did take it for a drive, and I just logged it on the current tune, and I noticed that the fuel trims were way out of whack. The car was on 93 octane. It has an ethanol percentage gauge in there, so I could check, and it was on 10% ethanol. So it wasn't a ethanol mix type situation, bad fuel, E85 mix. It wasn't anything like that. The car was just 20% off in both directions, and as soon as the long-term fuel trims would learn, it would start to fight itself. So it'd be going swinging 20% plus or minus, and ultimately it caused at least some hesitations. I don't know if that was the misfire problem for sure, but it definitely had some weird tune issues. We got to throw a tune in it, and it drove pretty good.
What I noticed right off the rip, the fuel trims are pretty out of whack. They're in line with each other. They're both 20%, but it's adding 20% right now. I'm gonna have you do just a baby full throttle pull. All right, it's like I think 3,500 to 5,500. Okay, that's smooth. Yeah, went right to 7.8 lambda, 1.3 air load, so this thing's not making a lot of boost. We're still actually pulling 15%, so whenever I make corrections to the math, I always do them in half increments, so I mean we can still pull even more fuel out. Ready? Yeah. That's good. It's not very fast, but it's pretty low boost. It's just 93 octane.
It's got only about 200 miles now on this fully built motor, but the misfire issue, gone. We did have to dive more into this car than we had originally intended. The car came in on a 6-rib belt system, and with these Kenne Bells, a 6-rib is a really hard to grip up pulley unless it's really large, like a 4-inch or a 375. But if you want to make any sort of power with a 6-rib belt system, and the way that this pulley system, it kind of sits up high like that, it's really, really hard to make some steam with it. We put the car on the dyno, and on 93 octane with the 8 to 10 pound pulley, it only made 550-ish. Which was pretty weird. So we kind of dove around, looked at the data, everything looked really, really good, smooth, not misfiring, making clean power. So we ended up trying to add some boost, and E85 for safety.
So much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like it's slipping again.
Yeah.
Something isn't right. We're looking at the belt. It looks like the belt was slipping. The boost curve was all over the place. And really, I mean, 640 on a E85 boosted Coyote, it's really not it. So we had to, sit down and do some thinking and figure out what can we do to tweak this car. So we got on the phone with Kenne Bell. They sell a 10 rib kit, and luckily it wasn't very back order. They were able to ship it, I think, within a week. And we got a full 10 rib kit with an ATI 20% lower. The install on this 10 rib kit is pretty extensive. It took me about a day and a half, I think. There's a lot of stuff. It adds a third belt system to the alternator. It's a very extensive kit, but since I put the 10 rib kit in, I have not had a single belt problem. The instructions are very detailed, and it works. It also has diagrams and tables, so if you change your pulley, it tells you where to put all these different idlers, so you can use the same belt for basically the full swing of the pulleys that you would put on it. So overall, the 10 rib install went well, but we had another problem. So when we went to go put the intercooler ice tank back in place, and Lee had this additional larger ice tank under the hood, that has this really large piece that goes down kind of in between the thermostat and the radiator fan. Well, the 10 rib kit spaces out the thermostat housing for clearance on the belt system, and that no longer worked, but he really wanted to retain the ice tank. So we called up VMP and we picked up one of their really nice, it's the plastic style ice tank that goes right in the spare tire well. It actually uses the stock spare tire retainer tie down, the little screw thing. It's a really nice kit. It does not come with lines, so do keep that in mind. We had to buy 50 foot of 3/4 inch line, and a few other little odds and ends, some little fittings and stuff like that. But the tank, the wiring, the pump, that stuff did come with it, and it works really well. It's got this little switch as well, so it has an on, so you can command it on even if the engine's off. It also has an off button, so you can have it not run. And then it has an auto feature, which is basically key on power and works as normal, so you don't have to flip the switch on and off. Works really well, I really like it, and the temps have been fantastic on it. After I finished the 10 rib kit, before I did the ice tank, we had this major problem where I went to go hit the key, wouldn't fire up. And I said, that is weird because the 10 rib kit has nothing to do with the intercooler pump system. After I dug in more, I found there is someone previous shop that worked on it and added a toggle switch to toggle on the intercooler pump so he could drain the water or run it at the track or anything like that. Well, that was tapped and soldered into the factory injector circuit wire under the fuse box, which then was tied into a relay that had a switch and it had power, and it was backfeeding that circuit. And it also had a popped fuse, and then it gets even worse because when I found that system was in place for a while, the fuel system has a trigger wire that's triggered off of a 12 volt activation. I found that that wire was wired to a direct ground. I ended up buying all data so I can find all the wiring schematics for this car, and I found that the 12 volt trigger was wired to a factory ground. And I don't know how it was working. It was backfeeding a ground circuit to activate fuel pumps in the back. Ultimately, I cut that. I wired the fuel pumps to the correct FPDM 12 volt trigger, and now the car runs. That's a long story, and we've dove deep into this car to try to get it dialed in for Lee so he can just enjoy this thing. So what we're gonna do first is the car is on E85. I've been driving it, make sure it's good, get a little braking miles on the new clutch. We're gonna do a run on the 375 pulley. It is gonna be around 15, 16 pounds of boost. Let's see what it does. All right, guys, so I'm pretty happy with that. 784, 592. Got about 15, 16 pounds of boost. This is the 375 with the lower. Pretty good. This is a 2.8 Kenne Bell, so not like the latest and greatest in blower technology. This is actually a pretty old blower, but that is respectable. We're gonna make another run on this pulley, and then we're gonna pulley down and I think add about 5 pounds of boost, and I would expect to see this thing somewhere in the 850 area, maybe 900. I just don't know where the peak efficiency on this KB28 is, but that is killer. We had a lot of issues the first time around on the dyno with belt slipping, a lot of stuff with the 6-rib system. The 10-rib system is gangster, and it is definitely working. The VMP ice tank working great. We had 109 degrees on the intake air temp there at the end of the run, so ice tank is doing fantastic. So we're gonna make another run and see what it does. We didn't really gain anything, but we did back it up. Sorry about the frame rate. 784 to 786, 595, 592. So we picked up 2 horsepower, but we didn't really pick up anything. All right, so the car made 786 wheel horsepower, and that's right in line with Lee's goal. I believe this car has made 720 with the previous tuner. You also have to remember this is a 10.5 to 1 compression, so we have a little bit less compression than a standard 11 to 1 Gen 2 Coyote. We also have a 2.8 Kenne Bell. This is the same rotor pack and blower that's been out there for years. If you want to compare apples to apples, you know, something like a 3-liter Gen 6 Whipple is a bad mother. That thing will make some serious power, but this 2.8 Kenne Bell is kind of more of a classic, non-fully optimized design, and I'm not saying it's a blower, you know, by any means. It's just a little outgunned in comparison to the latest and greatest in modern technology. Comparing this to a Whipple 3-liter Gen 6 is just a disservice to it. Now, with that said, we hit the power goals that Lee wanted to hit. The 780 on the 375 pulley, which I'm pretty happy with. That's on E85. Now we're gonna go down to a 325 pulley, which don't typically suggest adding 5 pounds of boost on a blower car right off the rip, but it is the pulley that we ended up picking, and had theorized that this would make somewhere in the neighborhood of 900 wheel, but let's go run it. All right, this is where the party starts happening. 325 upper. It's gonna add about 5 pounds of boost on what we just saw. Let's do it. All right, so we ended up making a little bit over 800, I think 812 or something like that. Something to note is in the mid-range, we're actually seeing a 100 horsepower increase. So in that mid-range, I think it's 6,000 RPM, we see a 100 wheel increase, but you start to see the gains dwindle. And as far as I can tell, I don't believe we're getting some belt slip. I think we're running into an inefficiency, or something is holding us up from really soaring and making some power up top. Because if you do some simple math, if it's gaining 100 wheel at 6,000 RPM, if it gained 100 wheel at 7,500 RPM, which is where it made peak, it would have made 880, which is pretty good. Pretty good for a blower, especially a smaller blower car. But we're seeing not quite exactly what we wanted to see. I think we're pushing the blower a little bit past efficiency zone. If I had to guess, I think if we put a 3.5 pulley on it, which would make about 18 to 19 pounds of boost, it might be in the sweet spot for this blower. And I would guess it would probably make about 840, 850 wheel, something like that, because we would continue to have some top end. We'd lose a little bit of power in the mid-range, but it would make a little bit more up top. Ultimately, we have the car, you know, running, driving good. It's not misfiring, it's not throwing codes, has a functional ice tank, has a belt system that's pretty badass. and I think Lee is going to really enjoy this. I was talking to him and I wanted to have him, you know, even fly down here just to go for a drive, because it's been so long since he's had this car home, and it's been at different shops, motor in and out, all this stuff. I just want to see him enjoy the car, and we have done our best to make sure that this thing is going to be dialed in. I mean, it's got a top-notch motor, it's got a good clutch, it's got a good tune on it, it's got a good belt system, ice tank. I mean, from everything I can see, and the car's really nice. I think that he's going to enjoy this car, and it's going to be an absolute awesome street strip